Hi, I'm Jay Tyler, and welcome to our fourth masterclass talking about Screen Builder and soft utilities that we've all been using. Um, Today's a little departure from the normal presentation where we've got actually three real-life broadcast engineers. We have Steve Walker, who actually works for Wheatstone now, but he cut his teeth working with Don Stevens at Radio 1 down in Dallas, and he's been our premier screen builder interface guy here at Wheatstone. Next, we have Don Stevenson, and Don is from Radio One in Dallas. And Don's going to talk to us today about a few of the applications. And Don's a power user for the screen builder stuff. So I think he's got a lot of good things to say. And rounding out our panel is Chris Penny from Australia. Thanks, Chris, for waking up so early to see us. Chris is one of the elite power users of Screen Builder. We got a lot of input early on from Chris. For those of you who don't know how the Screen Builder product really came about with Wheatstone, I'll give you a quick intro. And as we basically turned into an international company and we got into the IP world, everywhere we went, people wanted our equipment or our system to act and to move just a little bit different than the traditional folks here in the States. And so what we did, and it's actually came back from the bridge days, is we had these small programmable panels. They were console mount, they were rack mount, but for those of you who know our programming language, it was GP8s and GP16s. And these were little hardware devices manufactured here at Wheatstone that would run, we thought, hundreds or maybe 1,000 lines of code here and there. But as the users got a hold of these programmable panels, they started doing more and more with them. And then obviously everybody wanted to use touchscreens, and they wanted to take those hardware buttons and meters and stuff and bring those out into the soft world. And so it was probably about 2010 or 12, we actually started taking that program language and putting into a visual product, which we call Screen Builder. So that's sort of how Screen Builder came about. And now what people are using Screen Builder for are for intercoms, talkback, monitoring, satellite receivers, building small interview rooms, talkback controls. So the Screen Builder is basically the new bud box of the future. And any of my clients, when they call me up and they say, well, I need to do this. And in the old days, they'd be grabbing XLR connectors and DBs and steering diodes and everything. And nowadays we do that all in software with this tool called Screen Builder. So without further ado, I'll let Steve start. And Steve's going to sort of take us through the intro to Screen Builder. And then once he's done, we'll get on with Don. So go ahead, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Jay. See if I can get this to work right. Screen Builder is a widget-based Windows program that makes it easy for you to build screens for PCs or tablets that can make a multitude of tasks easier, from changing cross points to metering sources to generating alarms based on actions detected in your WheatNet IP system. The screen engine is also included as part of our LXE consoles, the TS22 Talent Station, and several other WheatNet IP products, including some of the panels that Jay was just mentioning. It's widget-based, but you can also write your own custom script code to go beyond the basics offered by the dozens of included widgets. Here's a few examples. This one was created, most of these, by the way, were created by some of our customers, and some of them were created by Don and I when we worked together at Radio One. These are like radio stations in a box. They're mixers that you can use in cases where you don't necessarily need a full-blown console. Some of these, I don't know exactly. I don't remember who created some of these. I stole them from people who have sent them to me.
Honestly, Steve, this was one of the first ones.
Really?
This was Ben Blevins, if you're watching. This was Ben Blevins at IMG many years ago. This was the first time I saw anybody write a front end for the utility mixer. And because they're doing sports, he basically put all these sources on a utility mixer and Navigator. We know better than to give Navigator to the average user. So he built this in Screen Builder as a headphone mixer, and that was just simply a front end for the utility mixer and one of the blades. So that's where that came from.
Cool. This one is is one that you're going to see a little bit more about when we introduce Don in a few minutes. It's changed since this implementation, but that's one of the good things about Screen Builder. When you need it to do something a little different, you just change it. This is also one that we used at Reach Media, which was purchased by Urban One and became part of the Radio One family. And I think there's been some consolidation going on, so I don't know if this one's actually being used anymore, but you can see that, we'll just take a closer look at this one. If you look across the bottom, Reach Media produces syndicated programming and could have anywhere from 8 to 10 different remote contributors at any given time, especially during the mornings when there's a couple of different morning shows coming out of the facility. So this was created to put in the TOC for Reach to make it easy to select what source would be sent to which access, make it easy for the engineer on duty to talk back to that remote source so that they could check their connection, make sure everything's good. Across the top, you see the different feeds from the control rooms and production rooms and a talkback button for each of those. Under distribution, you can see what's being sent to each of the intraplexes that deliver the satellite programming to Denver. And then, of course, on the far right are meters, and you can see under that what source is being metered. And then at the very bottom are the returns coming back from the satellite channels, so we can kind of make sure that Denver was doing their job right. Here's a few more examples. This is a question that I get a lot. Does it really require programming? And I don't really call this language a programming language. I call it more of a scripting language, but it's kind of like, it's like programming. You have to understand the logic of what you want to do and how to initialize things and how to check things. But a lot of the examples that we just saw were done without any custom scripting at all. They were just drag and drop from widgets, and you tell the widget what you want it to do. Like for example, a meter widget, you need to tell it what source or destination you want that meter to show, and then pretty much it does the rest of the work for you. If you do need functionality beyond that, you know, you can do it. That's what the scripting language is all about. It gives you that flexibility. There's a learning curve, of course, but that's kind of, we're all kind of used to that in broadcasting. We all have to learn a lot of different things because engineers now, that job description is way longer than it used to be back in the day. So here are some widgets that are included with Screen Builder. There's a number of different meter types, buttons, various shapes and various styles of buttons. Some of them are intended to mimic some of the console buttons. We can see on these two examples here, you can put your images on the buttons so they don't have to just be a certain color with a word on them. We have clocks and timers as well available. All of these are created for you by the widget, the script widget wizard, and faders and knobs. So those are some of the things that you can do, and most of those you can just drag those over. I'll show you this in a minute, but you just drag it over from the widget palette onto the layout canvas, tell it what you want it to do, and it just does it. And then if you need to go beyond that, that's where the actual scripting comes in. So let's see what Don has to say about some of the screens used in Dallas, and we'll get to see some of those in some of the rooms where they're used.
I'm Don Stevenson, Chief Engineer with Radio One Dallas and Reach Media. And we've been using Screen Builder for several different functions around the facility for years, and it's turned into a tool that is really almost like a Swiss Army knife for us. We can do lots of different things and create environments for talent to be able to do different functions without having to buy a whole console or build out too much in a room that's not doing that much. In the TOC here, we have a screen that this basically gives us a picture of everything going on in every room. Down here, we have all of our different connections of where we can bring talent in, and it shows us, for instance, the send and the receive level coming off of that access, all the different ones, brings it all into one place. And we can choose, click on monitor, you can hear what's coming from that location. Or you can jump up there and we can hear that station or that station, or what's going on in what's going on in one of the control rooms. And then we've got volume control, VU meter, things like that. So one of the other functions that is here, we also have talkback buttons to every channel that's out there. So we can press the talkback, press and hold that button and talk into the microphone. And then we can get with the talent and make sure they're all set up and corrected. The other thing that's running is, you see the little script down here, and it tells me exactly what source is feeding back to access. For instance, access 6 is getting Studio I bus minus 17. We can see on access 7, it's getting something from Studio G bus minus 15. So this shows us everything that's going on in the facility with the ability to hit a button and be able to hear exactly what it is all at one time. So there's no other way to do something like this without using Screen Builder. In this room, this is a multi-purpose room for us. It started off as just a pure DJ mix room for our hip hop station. And they would come in here and they could mix, and they can still mix. But that was just like an hour or two a day that they would use this. So when we consolidated several studios down, we moved a morning show producer. So Ricky Smiley's call screener will work out of this room in the morning. And so this is being used as a mixer. So on this side over here, you have the ability to mix things to go on the air, whatever. So you've got DJ mixer, they could turn on a mic, talk into it like that. They've got 2 mics that they could do, several different things that they can do. Also, they've got Box Pro and phones for the mixer or for the producer in the morning. You can change what things feed the phone and talk back into different rooms. So if I were to hit, like talk back here, now we would be talking back into that studio. This is their monitor control and headphone control. So they can turn up their monitors like that. They've got Q volume and then a selector for the Box Pro input. All these are tools that are available to you in Screen Builder that you can place onto the work surface and enable. So she is in here in the morning, she uses her Box Pro and can produce everything that she needs to do, take phone calls and screen it all and record things. So this is a Screen Builder that we built for a small edit room. There really isn't a whole lot of requirements needed in this room. So you'll see there's not much on the screen and it's a much smaller tablet. And so you can scale things down and do whatever you need. In this particular room, he's basically doing Box Pro editing. He can record his mic in, and if you turn the mic on, it'll mute the monitors. This is playback from the Box Pro, which in this particular case is just playing an audio file, and now it's going into record. So if he wanted to record something from the internet, he can record it direct into Box Pro to get an actuality from wherever he wants. And that's really the main function of this particular Screen Builder. So every time somebody comes to me with some kind of a request, and I quite often think of the tool set that's available in Screen Builder and find that I can create little areas of things for, people to do the job that they need to do. You could build a monitor screen in the conference room where they can pull up different things and monitor different stuff. Or, whatever. You could build a screen in the lobby that has all kinds of different videos, VU meters and things like that. I find it to be a tool that in my mind, I just keep going back to and trying to use over and over again.
Thanks, Don. This is a screenshot of Screen Builder showing the layout canvas with a few widgets already dragged onto it from the widget palette on the middle left. There's a meter widget, a button, a knob, and an analog clock, which are just a few of the available widgets. I've highlighted the meter widget, and you can see in the red box here under placed widgets that it's called meter 1. When I put that on the canvas, I clicked in the widget properties box on a signal, and this is a signal right here. It popped up this little meter signal selector, allowing me to select the source. I could use a destination either way. So we can meter any signal in the system. It has our standard. If you're a Wheatstone user already, you've seen the system scan. Over here on the far right, sources, destinations, salvos, and blades. Anytime you make a change in your system, you want to do a new scan to make sure you have all the current information. This is a screen showing the script editor, which is where you'll need to go if you do want to do some custom scripting. The top section of this is auto-generated. That's why you see a lot of AGs up there. The prefix for a lot of these commands and variables is AG for auto-generated. So that section, you can't really change anything up there. But the bottom section is the custom scripting section. And so this is where you write your custom stuff. You could add a button to a layout to do a simple salvo or fire or an XY connection, but say you want that button to do something in addition. Well, you can just take that code that it generated automatically and move it to the bottom section, and then add the additional things you want it to do. And it can do 2 things or it can do 200 things. There may be some limits as far as memory and so on are concerned, but essentially we don't really have a limit specifically built in on how many things a particular button or control can accomplish. Here's a little sample of how you would create a very simple script. I just drug a meter over. This is clicking on signal and picking the source. I'm going to use my LXE program here, and then let's put a button over here, and we can tell that button to do something by going to the script wizard. We'll have it do a salvo, and let's just do salvo 1. I don't even know what that does. But anyway, now I'm going to hit debug, and it'll show us what this is going to look like. So this is obviously very simple and very simplex, but the idea is that, what did it take, 15 or 20 seconds to create that? If you spend an hour with this, your imagination is really the limit. The manual for Screen Builder is pretty much built into the help facility. Everything is documented in the help. We do have a quick start that is basically taken from this help, and it's a fairly large document that gives a lot of the basics, and that'll be in the swag bag. You can download that off of our support site as well. But the search facility in here is really good. It's very easy to find what you're looking for. It gives you examples. First, it gives you all the exact correct syntax, and it'll show you some examples in most cases of that function being used. And then lastly, because there is so much to this, we do have a Screen Builder forum that you can join. It's free. You can post questions in here, and you can get answers not only from other users, but also our developer monitors this. I monitor it. Several people from Wheatstone monitor this, and if they know the answer, they'll chime in and answer. So this is a great way to get some additional help. There's also a section in this forum on logic, because we know that our logic can be confusing sometimes if you don't use it every day. It can be a little bit hard to remember. Now, I know I've done this before, but I don't remember how to do it. That's pretty much what I had to say here. I think we'll turn it back to Jay, or if Don's ready to go, turn it over to Don.
Thanks, Steve. What a great introduction. And like Steve said, it's your imagination is sort of the limit. My recommendation is when you guys are thinking of Screen Builder, have a project. Steve went and grabbed a meter, put it on the screen and a button. But think of something that you want to build. Have something that you're going to build when you start building screen builders. So like maybe a simple XY controller. The video showed Don putting all those different sources to the monitor when he wanted. In the old days, those would be hardware buttons. Chris will talk a little bit more about software and hardware buttons. Now that we got you through the introduction of Screen Builder, one, if you have any questions from here on out, just please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring them. And as there's breaks in the program, I'll be addressing each and every one of your questions. So with that, let's move on to Don. Like I said, Don, you did a great job in the video. It's going to be hard to follow up. But you're very passionate. You were an early user of it. Yeah, you see the power of it. So just tell us a little bit about your experience and recommendations from your end at Radio One.
Well, my first screen that I started with was when we started building out the studios for Ricky Smiley, and I really had no idea what I was doing, and I sat there and worked on it for quite a while, a lot longer than I normally do, just because there was a little bit of the learning curve. But when I got through it, I was very impressed with what it would do and how it would do it, and so that's kind of how I got started. Now when I start a project, I literally do like what Steve was talking about. I'll take a fader or a button or something, and I don't worry about the way it looks on the screen right away. I just kind of start putting stuff in and then arranging it as I go, and then kind of see what I end up with, and then at the end clean it all up and make it look much prettier. So I just find it that I can use it almost in any studio doing stuff. I was in Atlanta working on one of our facility there, which is a classic bridge router with a lot of blades and things in it, and I'm like, man, I'd like to display, some information out of the blades up on the screen. I'm like, we need to have Screen Builder in every one of these rooms just to be able to display what I want to show. So, that's kind of where I'm at. It's just I can see so many opportunities to use it.
You were suddenly in a place where you didn't have one of the tools that you realize you actually rely on quite a bit.
Well, and the guys that haven't been exposed to it that much, they don't realize, that it's even an option or, even something to consider.
Yeah. We tried to, I tell people it's drag and drop base. It's a drag and drop base program that allows you to peek into Wheatstone. And that's something I guess we could talk about a little, Don. What we're doing with Screen Builder is we're doing nothing with the clocking of our audio. We're not doing anything. We're just sort of, it's looking at the control layers within WheatNet IP, and it's pulling information, it's pulling meter data, it's allowing you to look and edit at connections, it's allowing you via buttons or salvos to create these actions. But it's not really volatile to the operation. It's sort of just like this third-party program that looks at your system and brings out some other tools that you're using. And, one of the things when we were watching your video, I got a little sad as a hardware salesman, but Screen Builders costed me a lot of sideboards. A lot of little consoles, little sideboards, because I see you're using the mixing power in the blades, right, to do all those?
Yep. And so, like in our DJ mix room, I know, most of our other facilities in the DJ mix rooms, they'll buy like, a smaller console, maybe an L8. I know I'm pretty sure I think I saw in Philadelphia they put L8s in their mixed rooms and stuff. And it's like it's a great console, but it's not exactly suited to what they were trying to do in there. So
Yeah, I always say that we were talking about before the show today, and it was like, yeah, you can have a WheatNet IP system, and then you can have this simple little DMX IP12 L series, but you need a lot more stuff going on in the background, and that's where not just Screen Builder, all of our scripting comes into play because if you don't want to rely on a piece of on a computer to run your scripting and routing in your facility or old school, we make hardware panels that do that kind of stuff. And those scripts will go back and forth. Don, I had a couple questions here that I want to field before we get started. And I guess this will be for you, Steve. Screen Builder, does it only run on Windows or can it run on Mac too, Steve?
It can run, we've had some people that have had success running it in Mac using Parallels, but it's a PC-based program. So it needs Windows, and the tablets that you've seen that Don has used are all running Windows. And Don, I guess those are all Microsoft Surfaces, or did you find something else that runs Windows that you could use, or?
they're all Microsoft Surfaces. I I think there's probably other options out there. I just have just gone and grabbed the quickest and easiest thing to find.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe Chris can answer that. Have you seen tablets that run Windows? I know there used to be some other brands, but I don't know if there's anything out there now or not.
There's been a lot of brands for us. I think just a quick Amazon will find you a lot of cheap stuff if you don't want to go down the Microsoft path and get something that's, I mean, it's going to be a bit cheap and cheerful. It's going to take a battering, but so's your Surface. So, you know, if it needs to be kind of disposable, yeah, there are cheaper options for the couple of $100s.
Okay, I've been meaning to look at that, and I've been asked, but I haven't been able to answer it because I just haven't taken the time to go searching. I knew there were some tablets that would run Windows that weren't Microsoft. I just didn't know if that was still the case.
Mm.
The old Pippos, I still see those around.
Yeah,
Another thing too that we do have a native version. So we're talking Screen Builder, we're talking PC tablets. Remember, part of LXC is Screen Builder. So, LXC is all running on a Linux kernel, right? So for you folks that are using Screen Builder in LXC, it looks and feels like Screen Builder PC Windows, but it's not. It's actually running in Linux, and it's very reliable, and it doesn't require Windows or anything. So you guys that want to build those screens in LXC, there's no PC, there's no third-party hardware. It's just all running embedded. Steve, you answered it. There's another question here. What's the advantage of using Screen Builder PC versus hardware panels? Memory, right,
Well,
guys?
I think that, I think it all depends on what the goal is. I mean, if it's, like, for example, you mentioned the LXEs, they can run a screen script or a panel script, and the panel script doesn't display anything. It just runs in the background. You may want to have a script that monitors the state of something in your system. And when it sees a change, it does something. And those kind of things don't necessarily have to display anything. They can just be running kind of in the background on your LXE, which this is all included with the LXE. There's no extra. The GSX does have this as an option, but the LXE has it built in. You can also do a screen script on the LXE that will display on that home screen monitor. So, but there are a lot of things that you may want to do with buttons and panels that you don't necessarily need any kind of a display. Maybe it displays something on the button itself. It has a little OLED display or something, or an LCD display of some sort. So, there's all kinds of options there. And you just need to kind of think about what you want to do and decide if it's best. If you need a dedicated screen, you can dedicate a computer to that and connect that screen, put it in the lobby, put it in a studio, put it wherever you need it. And you need a Screen Builder license for that. One thing I should mention, somebody has asked about licensing. You do need a license wherever the screen engine is running. For creating scripts, you used to need a license. Let's say you've got a computer in your office and you want to create the scripts there and then deploy them out into the station somewhere. You used to need a license for the computer where you're doing the development. And if you want it to run long term, you still do, but now you can preview the script and you can make it run for a period of time without even having a licensed computer for your development purposes. So that's something that people had been asking for, and the newer versions of Screen Builder offer that. So
Yeah. And Don, you don't have any PCs running multiple screens with Screen Builder, right? You pretty much have a dedicated PC per screen. That was a question that we
Yeah,
had out there.
I believe you can put multiple screens on and create multiple screens, but I've never done that because I've been able to cram everything onto one screen. The one in our TOC is pretty busy, and the one that was on Reach was super busy, but we've been able to get pretty much everything on. Now, I'm pretty sure we would run multiple screens if I needed it.
Yeah. Chris, I'm sure you've dealt with this many times.
Yeah, one of the interesting applications that we had with multiple screens was they wanted to put a little signage outside the studios. So instead of running 4 or 5 little PCs behind each screen, they just extended the HDMI from one PC with 4 HDMI outputs and run 4 separate screens in each window. No problems, works really well.
George Newman's got a good question, so I'll let you guys, all three of you can answer it for him. He says, I'm currently using Screen Builder to build an interface for a host to be able to remotely host to work remotely home via Comrex. He would like to have fire a button on the Comrex event and have a preset to the L12 console have a preset into the L12 console that Screen Builder actually drives. Can this be done? Chris, yeah, you can make a button, but Comrex, you got to have a physical input to us.
Yeah, you'd have to run a GPIO from the Comrex in, but yeah, absolutely you could do that. You could do that to fire an event. You could do that to fire a salvo and an event. Once you get into Screen Builder, your options are limitless.
Yeah, George, I'm going to have Steve Walker follow up with you after this. That was a good question.
I don't even think you need Screen Builder to do that. You could actually just fire a salvo from the GPIO.
Correct.
Yeah, but put a preset into the L12 is different than a salvo because you've got buttons and bus assigns that don't get moved over in a salvo.
Okay.
That's all. Now, what leads us into the whole thing too, that for the big power users of Wheatstone, like Chris and Don, there's a whole thing that we call ACI. And ACI was a carryover from the early 2000s into our television consoles. We always knew that everybody needed to talk to a TV board, routers and external switchers and everything. And so early on in the DNA of our digital stuff, we built this ACI command. Thank you, Steve Dove. He was a real big proponent of us putting this in our products. And that allows people to drag a button onto a screen and assign program to something like an L series or a DMX. IP12 doesn't have an ACI, but all of other surfaces do. So literally anybody could build their own remote. And if you buy remote L16 or remote DMX, that is actually a version of Screen Builder that we mapped to your console. So once you get in the next level, once you get into ACI, it's native to Screen Builder. So yeah, you can do a lot more. And then another question here, Steve, will you explain the licensing, how we do for Screen Builder versus the app? So when a customer wants, because there's really two pieces to it for the computer version.
Well, when you install Screen Builder on a PC, you're installing two things really. You're installing the Screen Builder program itself, which is where all the widgets live and where you do all of the custom scripting. You're also installing the Screen Engine, and the engine runs as a service in Windows, and that's what gets licensed. So you can wherever the Screen Engine is required to actually run a script that you've created. So the Screen Engine, typically you always install the entire Screen Builder package on a computer if you're doing this on a computer because it includes the Screen Engine, but the actual licensing is for the Screen Engine. And our lead developer on this project has mentioned that to me many times, and it's to the point where it's now drilled into me. If I say there's a licensing issue with my screen builder, he's like, "Screen builder doesn't have a license; it's the engine." And I'm like, "Okay, I get it, Gary."
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, it's just a question out there. People want to know
But
about.
But basically, as I mentioned earlier, you can develop without having to have a licensed screen engine, because you can actually run the script for a period of time, 20 minutes, I think it is. And then it will say, "Oh, sorry, you're not licensed," and it'll just stop. So you can't just go deploy it without a license. You need a license to deploy it. But I think I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but Don and I, when we first looked at Screen Builder, we figured, we had this one need, and we figured that, we'll just buy Screen Builder and that's it. We couldn't imagine there would be another use for it. We thought this was kind of off the wall, what we wanted to do. And I don't know how many you've got now, Don, but we kept finding more and more things to use it for. And so, yes, we've got a lot of screen builders, but that kind of almost leads into the license server. I don't know if we're talking about license server today. I know we got to get to Chris, but
I
Screen
might
Builder
bring it
does
up
work
later,
with
but yeah.
license server. So if you've got multiple Screen Builder licenses, you can fire up a computer and let it grab a license from license server, and away you go.
Yeah, and like for you folks that have newsrooms, license server is a perfect caveat for that. If you've got a 10-person newsroom and you know that you only have 2 or 3 reporters at those desks at any time, you don't need to buy 10 licenses of Screen Builder. You can build a little workstation, wire it, load it on 10 different computers, and as people log in, they're pulling those licenses from a pool, and when they log out, they release them. Anybody running VMs basically has to use our license server. So every time you spin a machine up, it'll go grab that license and spit it back. So yeah, that's something we can talk about. And maybe I'll do that on the next class, Steve. But yeah, license server is good. And then I'm going to sum up Jeff's, Jan, and Chris's questions all at once. Jan's got 5 different screen builders running off a single PC doing timers. And then Chris is like, well, it'd be nice if we had a Linux version of Screen Builder. And I agree. I've got a Linux driver. If more of you folks that want to get on the Linux bandwagon actually do it and start deploying it, we'll make you a copy of Screen Builder that runs natively in Linux. Like I said, it's running now in the LXC in Linux, but we've been developing these tools. We just haven't seen a big rush for people to go out there and build Linux machines and run this stuff. We do have the tools. We do have a Linux driver for you Rivendell customers out there. But yeah, it's something that people like. And if you guys can find a commercial use for it, we'll definitely listen and come out with some new solutions for you. I think that's it. So we're caught up on questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, the master of scripting. There's Chris has mentioned he's a partner from Agile down in Australia. And Chris, I don't know how long we've been working together. It's been a long time. But Chris probably has, and I'll ask him, the biggest scripts in the world running. What's your biggest, before I just give it to you, what is your biggest script? How many lines of code have you stuffed in Screen Builder or one of these hardware panels?
I've filled hardware panels up till they bleed. In terms of Screen Builder, though, we haven't found the limit with that yet. The biggest script I probably wrote was for the LDS church in Utah, although that was a huge system. That was a couple of hundred blades controlling a bunch of things. And the way we do scripts, though, is based on loops. So if we get one studio right, we just seed that a number, and then that works for all the studios. So we don't have to write, if we have 200 studios, we don't have to write 200 lines, 200 bunches of the code. We just seed a number, and they become all those studios. So it makes life fairly easy for that sort of deployment. And it keeps the lines down as well.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll listen to you and your tips and tricks, and tell us what you've been doing with these programs and how you've been deploying them for the last 15 years.
Yeah, Jay, thanks. And look, yeah, you're right. I'm a systems integrator. My I've got a broadcast background. I used to work in radio stations and do all this sort of stuff, and now do it for the masses. But my big niche is to allow users to not concentrate on the technology, but concentrate on their jobs. So when I design workflows for people, that's really about getting the technology out of the way and just making it sleek and simple, easy to use, very intuitive. And screen builders probably really changed that for us because Wheatstone had a lot of tools already, which Jay mentioned, which were scripting panels, physical buttons, but you were only limited to the amount of buttons or the interfaces that you had. So when you wanted to move into something that was quite agile, I'd like to say, something that you could change when you needed it to, Screen Builder does that. It's a great problem solver, problem solver. And one of the things I wanted to talk to today was not only, like Jay said, Screen Builder is a really easy thing to look into your Wheatstone system as a looking glass and also control it. Screen Builder is also great to extend into other systems as well as a problem solver for your facility. So on that note, let me share some happy snaps with you. Okay, hopefully you've got that there. Okay, so this is not too dissimilar from what Don's done, but in this situation here, this is deployed at our Australian Parliament House, and it's a comprehensive news gathering workstation, of which we have 5 or 6 of them. And they do, the news gathering, the TVs, the codecs, the phones, they do recording. It's bit of all things to all people. But that's a really good example of where we've replaced some hardware, some really legacy hardware with some software solutions, all based on the glass that they would like to put in the areas. But it still has the lowest latency. Like Jay said earlier, no audio traverses this, so we get to use the low latency of the Wheatstone hardware. And in this instance, we're using an M4. So the great thing about the M4 is it gives us 4 microphones with processing and 4 USB interfaces that we can use for internet computers, which means we don't have to put drivers on there. But in my mind, an M4 is 4 news workstations. Easy, really nice deployment. And this is the interface that the journalists use there at our Australian Parliament House. The next one I'll show you is an interesting application which was driven by a need. A client needed a pulse logger. So they're a syndicator and they needed to confirm for their clients, because they used to always get phone calls, oh yeah, we missed that break, you didn't send the pulse. So what this does is just monitor all the lines out of their building, and you can see there's a little text file there. So this monitors all the SLIO that's leaving, all the logic ports that are leaving the system. And as they hit the satellite uplinks, we log it. And as it comes down from a satellite receiver in the same facility, we log it again. And then it creates a text file, which we also put into Microsoft BI so they can pull up a web page. It shows them for every program what pulses went out and that they came back. And that's a really simple application. There was very low, I think that's probably 10 lines of scripting. There's really not a lot in there to get that working, but it was driven by a need and something we threw together really quickly, and a nice integration just to save on workflows for people. They don't have to sift through logs and all that sort of thing. So that's our pulse logger. Another application we've used is camera switching. A lot of people are doing camera switching, and there's a lot of software out there to do that. I like to use vMix just in simpler applications, because vMix is a software product that you put on a machine. So IT people love it. You don't need any hardware. You can use USB web cameras and things like that just to get started. And the interface is really easy to learn. Lots of tutorials online. The great thing about vMix is it's got a REST API. So you can send commands from Screen Builder commands out from your Wheatstone system through Screen Builder and out to vMix to tell it to put a super underneath. You can tell it to switch cameras and do fades and transitions and use a different studio if you're using a different studio for a program. So that's what this vMix controller does. It really just brings out the lights that would be on the surface to show us that the microphone's on and there's someone talking, and we trigger the changes based on those sort of signals from Wheatstone. So there's another really simple application where we've extended Wheatstone stuff out into other systems. One other one we did is, this is a really interesting one. I've got a video, but it didn't show exactly properly, but we've got this incredibly complex screen It's a producer's screen at Radio Tab in Queensland, and they've got an area where there's TVs everywhere. And I'm not sure if you've had this before, guys, but when you've got all the same TVs in a new facility, if you press the on button, all the TVs come on. You press the on button again, all the TVs go off because they all share the same channel. And they needed to control 3 TVs up in front of the producer. So what we did there was we created, and I'll just play that again if you can see that down the bottom. These 3 buttons at the bottom, TV left, center, and right. And we bought a little IR sender. You can buy these. I can't remember what the name of them are, but they're less than $100. And they turn UDP messages on your network into IR commands for the TV. So we stuck a dot underneath every TV, and we just use the drop-down box to choose the channel they want, and it changes the right TV without changing every other TV in the facility. Again, a really simple thing that we needed to do that we went, oh yeah, we can do that, chucked it together in a screen builder, and it works really well. The hidden benefit of that, in this facility, they have hundreds of TV channels because of the racing syndication they do. One hidden benefit that we didn't realize at the time was that because all their TV stations are in a drop-down list, now it's really easy for them to change channels because they don't need program guides. It's really a, hey, I want this, there you go. The workflow is really improved by using the screen builder in that case. The second last one I'll show you is the XDS receiver. In the States, I know you guys use the XDS satellite system a fair bit. We worked with Learfield, some great guys down there, and our friends who needed a fast and easy way to monitor their 500 odd audio channels. They've got a bunch of monitoring receivers that they needed to change into their plant, but really difficult to log into a web interface and work out which one's which and all that sort of thing. So we built them a quick and easy screen builder GUI, and this is in Screen Builder. We've just designed this the way it kind of looks like an SDS receiver, and they can change the audio on whatever port they want. It shows the status of the channels, and that uses a telnet connection between the Screen Builder software on any PC and the satellite receiver. So that's a really simple application, but it also shows that we could extend that if someone needed to make a more simpler user control. If you wanted to change something from a console in a studio, then you could easily do that by extending buttons on a surface through Screen Builder out into the XDS receiver using the telnet. So yeah, it really does open up options once you start tinkering with this Screen Builder product. So there's that guy. And the last guy I'd like to bring you is a little bit of a concept in you've got to have fun when you do what you do. Some people like to hide Easter eggs in their software. I like to make nice little web interfaces so that, oh, sorry, not web interface, but little interfaces that, yeah, so you've got the little guys here doing their table tennis while they're waiting for all the signals to load into their system. It's just a cute little thing. And it just goes to show that, Screen Builder, Wheatstone have given you a lot of really nice widgets in Screen Builder. It's a very handsome suite of things. There's a lot of other applications in other industries that don't look as pretty as they do. And it's good to know that if you want to put your own flavor or your own personality into the widgets that Wheatstone have, you can load your own images, and that's what I've done here. That table tennis is just a button that's changing states between 8 states. So there's some, cute little things you could do to make it look pretty. And just because you're throwing it together doesn't mean it has to be ugly. So that's Screen Builder for us and the integrations we use. And I hope that's sort of wet your whistle a little bit into the things that you can do in your plant.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's good. Chris, you make it look so easy.
It is easy. And it's fun. More than anything, it's fun.
No, you do make it look easy. And so while I'm there, I've got a couple things I want to show you too, metering and some things we do in the States. But really what Screen Builder does, and Chris is being very modest because he's really, really, really good at this stuff. It allows you to really peek. All of the Screen Builder, any of our scripting, I guess, allows you to peek into Wheatstone, peek into the Wheatstone network or your IP network and pull bits and pieces out of it that's not disruptive to the operation. And Chris said it the best. He basically wants to make people's jobs easier. And he didn't speak anything about him. None of this benefits him at all. It was all about making somebody else's job or workflow easier, or just maintaining the continuity that they have. That was another thing too. As you guys change manufacturers, I will tell you, nobody likes change, especially an old time board op. And things with scripting and things that you used to do with the other system, when you get into scripting and things like LXE, I'm used to pushing a button and it happens. Well, if you buy a different manufacturer, that button's probably going to do something totally different. But with the scripting language and the tools that we provide you, we actually allow you to emulate other things. One of the reasons Chris is so good at what he does is because when he was young, he had to learn CLOTS. And that was all program based, everything. And once you got into that, Chris at an early age learned you could do anything and everything with it. The problem was he could do everything and anything with it. So they brought out and did so many things. And I will just be upfront with you. I think the Australians make broadcast extremely complicated. They do a lot of stuff in the background in a standard product won't work for them. These guys need a mill. So they basically take an anvil and build it into their own milling machine. And that's the way they've done it down there. But again, Chris, I think you were the one that really got us into the whole UDP strings, weren't you?
Yeah, we did UDP strings. I can't remember what that application was for, and we've used it a bunch. We can use it with Zeta, which is the other thing that we use it a lot with automation systems, with making signals go in and out. The UDP has been really, really handy. The other thing we do is command line. So if you press a button on the screen, you can run any command in Windows, which is just changes the world.
Yeah.
You can open up the calculator.
Yeah.
Solitaire.
Yeah, and then again, like Chris, you said it earlier, there's no audio running through these things. If you program a button to take you off air or move a cross point in your system, that's on you. But there's really nothing volatile in Screen Builder or any of these scripts that will affect your audio or your performance. Our Screen Builder is built to look like our old clot system, Sherry. That's great. Yeah, but
We
Sherry,
could do that if you need it to be.
Yeah, can you make it play tic-tac-toe? You could, right, Chris? You could make your own clots play tic-tac-toe? No?
No, just table tennis. That's it.
She said no. I got just a couple things. I'm going to share a screen with you because one of the things that Town Square does. So Town Square decided they were going to standardize on Wheatstone a long time ago. So this isn't Screen Builder. This is another soft application we make, which we call our meter app. But I want to just take you through it. And a lot of these places are unmanned these days. Okay. And so what we've done here is one of the cool things about everybody's AOIP audio is that every single destination or source or mix has metering data with it. So what we have here, if I look over to the left, first thing we do is we have the air signal. That's the tuner that's coming in. These guys are a Zeta house, so they've got their A serve. Well, that A serve is a mix that's being generated in a utility mixer via Wheatstone driver. That source is on what I call a transmission mixer, and I learned that from Chris many, many years ago. We have a U mix basically in front of every signal. Instead of switching all these different things and doing all these salvos and routes, you got your popular 8 sources on the transmission mixer. Just turn the channels on and off. And if you want to switch and do a fade, you can enable the fades on them. And so I can look at this screen here and say, okay, well, I've got the tuners working, the A serve's playing, I've got audio out of my U mix, and there's the feed to the STL. Even the cleaning lady can figure out what's working and what's not working at this facility. So that's a big tool. And every single Town Square facility buys a copy of meters, and they also buy a copy of Screen Builder. And the next screen I'm going to show you is our interface with Tieline. Okay, so one of the things that makes, one of the things that we all know was in the old days was an opto. Then we moved that to CLOTS, and it's lamp on, lamp off. And then we moved it to the Wheatstone world, and it's called an SLIO. And all we're doing is we're looking for this change of state out of a connection, on a logic port. And we've got a really slick interface with Tieline. They've been one of our early partners. They opted for our hardware solution. So we actually basically drop a little mini blade in the gateway. What I'm looking here was our older card in the Merlin. But once you take your tie line codecs and you plug them into the Wheatstone system, they show up in the cross point. We get all the inputs and we get all the outputs. And what it allowed, and this was built by Kelly Parker, and we roll these out in all the town square markets these days. It shows us our resources. In this case, we've got all our 6 Merlins. We can see what their feedback, what their source is. We can listen to them. We bring all the EAS in here. You notice it says Cedar Rapids up here on the main screen. Over here, we got the Waterloo connections. One of the things that we did is we consolidated the Waterloo market and the Cedar Rapids market, and what we're using for transmission was the tie line gateways and Merlins. And so when we have a connection, we get a soft LIO or a status back from tie line that a connection has been made. And that allows us to turn these blocks red. So we've got gobs and gobs of logic connections built into the tie line, so we can traverse, we can take their audio and our audio and logic, bind them together in tie line and traverse the world with it. And because the audio and the control is bound together in our packet, you're never going to have any time alignment issues or any starts or stops that are out of sync. So again, because tie line's got this card, it enables us then to make in Screen Builder, look inside that, pull connection status, listen to sources, and also do routes. And for you guys that are consolidating markets, this kind of stuff gives you the feedback or the ability to walk up to listen to a codec, very similar to what the Reach guys do. And then these guys can also look at this station. Somebody can walk up to this touchscreen in the middle of the station and listen to any of the air feeds. It's just another way to get the status out. We're not making new engineers. So basically what we've been doing is we've been leveraging technology, and Screen Builder is a great way to do that. So do I have any other questions at all? Oh, yes. Steve, you did this. Chris did it early on. Chris, I'll let you do it because you used it a lot. Can you explain layering to us? We want to hide things and bring things out. I push a button, I want to hide things. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Layering reminds me of, remember the old school projectors we used to have at school where they had put the slides, the transparent slides on top, and you could put multiple transparent slides on top? That's what layers reminds me of. So yeah, every time you want to have a screen, you could have a screen that when you press a button in the corner, it lights up a whole new advanced set of buttons. So you're generally hiding things from users, or you could have it wipe everything off the screen and create a bunch of new pages. So layers gives you the ability in Screen Builder to hide and show buttons based on events in the system. And you can have it based on buttons on the screen, or you can have it show and hide things based on the system. So one thing I've got is a clock in the studio. And it sits on the wall and it shows a clock and it shows the on-air status and all that sort of fun stuff. But if the path goes dead for some reason and the tuner goes quiet, we've got a silence detect in Wheatstone that triggers a layer which says off air, and the clock turns into a big alarm. And that's one of the cute ways that we've used layers.
Cool. And one other thing, we're talking about soft stuff. I will tell you, I quiz the industry every single month, and I'm asking them, hey, are you a hardware guy or are you a software guy? When Don, one thing I will tell you, when we were watching Don's video, when he wanted to touch those buttons, he had to look and move, and you've got to pay attention. But Chris, what about when you've got guys, girls that want the old big button on the console? They want to push back a talk back button in a panel, and they want to feel that mechanical click. How do you deal with those guys?
You give it to them. Well, that's it. You can't escape tactile, and screens are great. And faders on screens is probably the thing that's a little bit funny. And talkback buttons, when you go to feel for that and just press it like you used to, you can do that. So you can use the SLIO or the logic ports in Wheatstone, the hardware logic ports, to bring out buttons that you can still drill into a desk. But now you can control that in Screen Builder. So that same logic you're using on a physical button, then you can extend that physical button into screens. And then as your needs change, as other things are happening, one shift it might do talk back to the control room, another shift it might call the receptionist. You could do all these smart things and extend the legacy buttons that you might still need, because people still want to touch and feel. Radio's still a very personal thing, and sometimes you can't take the console away. Sometimes you can't take their intercom button away, but you still can get that same engineering agility again that you need by extending those things into something like Screen Builder, something software.
Don, same with you guys down there. Is everything soft? Do you have any hard buttons doing anything?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was gonna say, is everything soft down there? Do you guys have any physical buttons, or is everything on touch screens in your place?
Uh, Pretty much everything is on touchscreen for this is all the screen builder stuff that we've done. I've not extended any, but I mean, it's certainly easy enough to do through the hardware layouts.
All right. I guess we had one last question here. Mr. Malo, he says, concerning tie lines, we have Merlins integrated into our Wheatstone system, but we cannot get the metering to show up on the screen builder meters. Is there something that needs to be enabled for it to work? Our early third-party devices or peripherals did not have metering supported. So what we'll do is we will actually put some of those sources on utility mixers, and then we will meter that utility mixer. Is that what you do, Chris?
Yeah, or spare hardware outputs if you've got
Okay.
a couple of spare outputs somewhere. The good thing about the hardware outputs is you can turn them into monos. So if you've got 16 stereos, you can turn them into 8 stereos, you can turn them into 16 monos and just use a couple of spare ones to meter the things that you can't normally meter.
The new gateway interface, it's actually a blade, so metering supported in that. So
Yep.
anything we move going forward, well, great. So there are a bunch, we do have an ebook, and there is a bunch of some examples of screen builders in the ebook. If you see anything you guys like or anything you want to emulate, the screen builder community out there is very, I don't know, very, very caring and very sharing, I should say. So if anybody sees something and they want to dig into it, you can email me directly. You can reach out to our support guys. We will find the creator of said screen and we'll ask them to reach out to you. Again, the forum is really, really good. People that are looking for a specific bit of code or ways to do something, just post your question in the forum and we'll be happy to help you out. I'd like to thank everybody, Steve and Chris, thanks for waking up, and Don, you guys are all professionals. Our next class is going to be on the 29th. So that will be talking about streaming. That's been really, really popular. We'll also talk about some other Wheatstone applications. So I thank everybody for coming today. I think it was really educational. Thank you to presenters. You guys are amazing. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody at the last class. Thank you very much, gents. Take care.